Okay, this video I'm going to demonstrate basket weave stitch. Basket weave stitch is another tent stitch. And in basket weave, you're going to be working on the diagonal. You're stitching over the intersections again. You're working on the diagonal. There's a couple of different rules with basket weave that honestly I did not follow for quite some time because I basically am self-taught. I just looked up videos on the internet, and so I got little facts here and there, and over time I'd be like, oh, whoops, I'm doing that wrong. You know, it kind of ends up okay in the end. But so you're still doing a tent stitch from Arizona to New York over that intersection, but instead of working horizontally or vertically, you're working on the diagonal of your canvas. And it's called basket weave because the pattern on the back side of your canvas looks kind of like a basket. So again, I'm going to start with a waist knot because I'm going to start on a new area of the canvas. In a minute, I'll kind of show you how to cast on when you've got enough stitches to do so. So I'm going to start with a waist knot, and again, I'm going to anchor my thread horizontally. I'm not going to do so many stitches over. So I'm going to pull it through the top. Remember, I've got it anchored through there. And I am going to start on what is called a pole on the canvas. And I have painted your practice canvases, the big square, to start on what is called a pole. So on your canvas, it's woven. You've got these little intersections, and where you've got a little vertical part of the canvas that's on top of the horizontal part of canvas going down, it kind of looks like a pole that a fireman would slide down. That's called a pole. Where your canvas, your canvas is woven like a lattice pie. So where you've got the horizontal intersection on top of the vertical, that is called a step. Okay, and you'll see why that's important in a minute. The way your canvas is made, it is best to work down the poles and up the steps to keep the integrity of your canvas. All right, so I'm going to start at a pole, and again, I'm just going to move up from Arizona to New York. Okay, now if I'm working on the diagonal where you've got a painted square, I've got to go to the next section. I'm not going to move straight over here. This next section on the diagonal, these are both steps, okay? If you can see, the canvas that's on top is horizontal. That's a step. So I'm going to go down to the first step and make a stitch. And then I'm going to move up. I'm going up the stairs, up to the next step. All right, so I'm stitching a square, or what will probably be a triangle, because I'm not going to stitch that much. So now I'm going to go down the poles. The next diagonal section are poles. Firemen slide down the poles. So I'm going to move down those poles. Okay. And then to keep stitching, now I've got steps again. I'm going to move up the steps, up the steps. Okay. And now I'm done with that row. So now I'm going to go to the next diagonal row. And again, I'm going down the poles. Now, this is just my favorite stitch. I am able to get my stitches more even, tighter, just very, what's the word I'm looking for? They just look the same. I just do a better job when I'm doing basket weave. Everything just looks tight, neat. All my stitches look the same. I'm just not as good in continental. Some people are so good at continental, they don't need to do basket weave. You'll just get a feel for what works best for you. Okay, so once you get the right starting point, maybe your canvas is painted in an area where your first one's not a pole, it's a step, then you would just start on that step and then go down the poles. Okay, you're just going to keep going up and down and up and down. Now, sometimes obviously a design, you're going to hit elements that are not, you're not stitching out a perfect triangle, a perfect square. That's fine. You just stop it where the design stops and go up and just keep stitching that particular color. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and we're going to look at the back. And if you look at the back, you see the woven pattern that I'm getting there looks like a basket. That is why this stitch is called basket weave. Okay, so both continental and both basket weave are both types of tent stitches. Both of them give full coverage to your canvas. Basket weave will use a little bit more thread. For me, it's just a tighter, neater stitch. I think you can see the difference that my stitches look much better here than here. That's just me. It may look the opposite for you. So you can just figure out what is best for you. Again, exactly the same, just like with the continental, I'm gonna get close to this waist knot, so I'm gonna get rid of it, okay? So I'm gonna pull up on that knot, make sure I'm not cutting my canvas, be very careful, trim off the knot, okay? Now, if I am done, say I'm done with that area, that's the only area that's purple on my canvas, so I'm going to turn it over and I'm gonna cast it off, okay? So on basket weave, and I've made this mistake, I have a gigantic canvas where there are all these vertical lines where the stitches are lifted, and it's because I went through the diagonal to cast off my thread. I have since learned that that is not correct. To keep your stitches as smooth as possible when you're done, you should either cast off horizontally or vertically. So on this one, I'm just going to demonstrate a little horizontal cast off. I'm going to go through a few stitches, not through the last stitch that I just did, but a couple of stitches is plenty to cast that off. Trim it down. And now my stitches are in place. All right, say that I'm going to come in, or I just ran out of thread and I need to start a new one. I can cast my thread back on. Once I have stitches in place, I do not have to keep using waist knots. It's kind of up to you, your preference. Some people will stitch a canvas and have waist knots coming in from the outside of their canvas. I've never done that. So I can see here that my next row is steps. So I'm going to need to start down here. So I'm going to want to cast my thread on so that it's going to come out and be close to those stitches. All right. So what I'm going to do is cast on vertically. Okay. So that means I'm going to run through a few stitches vertically and I'm going to pull it through. Okay. And my first stitch, I'm usually going to hold it a little bit or just be very careful so I don't pull it all the way back out again. But once I've done my first stitch, it's anchored, okay? And I don't have to use a waist knot again, and I can just keep stitching. And you can do the exact same for continental stitch as well. So you just know that casting on or casting off your thread, run it through the back side, either horizontally or vertically, not on the diagonal. If you can help it, occasionally you might get to an area of your canvas that there's just nothing you can do about it. And you just keep stitching, okay? So that's basket weave and how you do that. And I promise It is not that hard. Once you kind of get it into your head, into your mind, you just do it automatically. And for me, it's just kind of a very relaxing, therapeutic stitch. You can see how this canvas is not painted. This is a 13 mesh canvas, and I am getting great coverage here. You cannot see any white canvas coming through these stitches. That is also because Planet Earth silk is kind of thick, which I like. It's perfect for 13 mesh. I would not use it on 18 mesh. So again, I'm kind of getting low. See how short that is? If I were to try to do the next row, I wouldn't make it all the way through. Sometimes that'll leave a little hole in the middle. So at this point, I'm going to cast it off, and I'm going to go vertically because there's more room there to cast it off. And trim it down.